In the day and age that we're living in, the role of a parent has been reduced to somebody who merely places a roof over their children's head, slaps some branded clothes over their backs, find the best schools that money can buy, and works long and hard to ensure that those school fees and everything else is maintained. And don't get me wrong, while all of that is important for raising a child, sometimes we can get so caught up in maintaining and attaining all of that that we lose sight of the mandate that God has given to parents. Hi, my name is Paulina from Raising Hope. Thank you for watching. Today I want us to talk about defining the role of a parent. Of course, we're going to be making use of our parenting manual, which is our Bible. Why not turn with me to the book of Proverbs? We'll be looking at chapter 22, verse 6. And it reads as follows. Train up a child in a way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Now, what I love about this verse is that there's an instruction, and the instruction is train up a child in the way that he should go. Now, you might be wondering, train up a child? Are we coaches here? Is this a soccer team? What are we training them up for? And what is this training that we're doing? Now, in the English dictionary, it defines train as to teach in a particular skill or a particular behavior. It goes on to say, practice, and to instruct. What does that mean as a parent? Now, do you remember when your little ones were merely toddlers, about 1 or 2, really small, and they didn't really know where they're going or what they're doing. They would run all the way to the heater and put their hand there, or, by the fireplace and just stick their hand there. They don't really know the difference, between good or bad. They don't know what danger even looks like. So they just kind of go, and we're constantly watching them and watching over them and running behind them, to say, no, stop, don't touch that, or no, you can't go there, or no, you can't climb that. That is actually training. That doesn't actually cease until children leave our home. All that happens is that the training changes. Once a child understands, oh, okay, I can't touch that because it's hot, we move on to the next training. Now, you might think, that sounds exhausting, because a lot of us, let's be honest, once our children are at about the age about 5 or 6, we think, okay, now we can just kind of be laid back and take it easy. But you know what? The role of a parent doesn't actually stop. While we still have our children under our roof, we have a responsibility to train them. And often what happens is that, we take a back seat when we feel like, they can handle this from here. And they're in their teens, or, we just seem to think that they've got this, they're a little bit more mature. But, I believe that God created children in a way that they are, there to receive instruction. So if we are not training them, I assure you somebody else will be training them. And I know this is a very demanding thing, right? But I believe God asks us to do this because He has given us the grace to do it. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I constantly struggle with is to get my children to pick up after themselves. Now, I used to get to a point where, you know what, I'm just going to pick up those shoes, or I'm just going to sort this out because I'm so tired of talking about the same thing. But I believe that this is where practice comes into practice, right? We need to constantly be reminding them, you need to pick up your shoes. Accountability is an important part of training. Now, once we've had the discussion to say, this is the way in which you need to go, this is what you need to do, we need to hold them accountable and continue to remind them. It is exhausting. It is, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes it's just easier to just be quiet. Because to constantly be calling someone to say, but we've spoken about your shoes. Please, can you pick your shoes up and put them where they stay? Sometimes it's easier to just sort it out. But what we're doing when we do that, we're depriving our children from actually learning. We're depriving them from being trained and being instructed. So yes, it's exhausting, but I promise you, God has given us the grace for it. As parents, we need to know who our children are hanging out with. And of course, not all of us have the luxury of being able to do, pickups and drop-offs at school. So we miss out on quite a lot of stuff. But I believe the parent and a child relationship is just as important as any other relationship. So we need to invest time and we need to make the time for it. Sometimes we don't have time to catch up with our girlfriends, with our spouses, with our life partners. But in all our busy schedules, we make the time for it, to sit down to know what's going on in your life, to speak about feelings, to speak about all sorts of things. And I believe we need to have the same kind of commitment to parenting. Yes, we might not have the luxury of time, but why not schedule in a little bit of time on the weekend? It's just you and your child, and you're sitting and having some coffee or tea or juice. Go out somewhere and just sit and chat and catch up. I believe it's really important for us as parents to know who our children are hanging out with. Know what's going on at school, which teacher they're enjoying, which subjects they're enjoying. It's in knowing what's happening that we will be able to instruct them. I've learned over the years that the enemy is very good at sending friends along our children's way, to try and get them off the purpose that God has for their lives. And we spoke about purpose in our previous video. If you haven't watched that, you want to go back. Each and every single child does have a purpose, but the enemy wants us not to fulfill that purpose. And our duty as parents is to raise them up in a way that they are ready to go into the world and fulfill their purpose. I love the book of Proverbs chapter 31. And there, it was actually written by Solomon, his mother. And she was basically instructing him in the way that he should go. She was training, right? This is essential. I'm telling you, training is essential. We need to be telling our children the kind of friends they need to be hanging out with. Have you ever heard the saying, that bad company corrupts good character? That is the truth. We need to ensure that our children are surrounded by good company. We need to give them the skills and empower them to know what kind of friends to look for. We need to tell our children that if you watch, this kind of movies, this is what's going to happen. We need to be open and honest with our children, because if we don't instruct them, somebody else is going to instruct them. This is exhausting. Trust me, I have 3. I know. But I believe that God will honor us when we honor His word. Now, going back to Proverbs chapter 31. Here, Solomon's mother instructs him in a way that he should go when he's looking for a wife. We know many great men who were so gifted and so absolutely awesome in what they're called to do, but they've been vile women that came along their path, and that just, took them off the rail, and their purpose just diminished just like that. And I believe it's the same in our children. We need to sit with them and say, this is the kind of woman that you need to look for. If you look at Proverbs chapter 31, she speaks there even about strong drink. She's speaking to her son about alcohol, to say these are the consequences of alcohol. We need to be in a position where we are comfortable enough to speak to our children about absolutely anything and everything, and vice versa. They'll be curious about certain things, but they need to know that we are the people they can come to, to get the truth on instruction and not be judged in any formal manner. So when we instruct our children, it needs to be from a place of love. When I am committed, to this training, and I say to somebody, hey, you didn't clean up after yourself. I see your plate is still lying there. My instruction is, the reason I need you to learn to clean up after yourself is because you're showing the next person respect. If somebody is coming after you to clean up after you, that shows that you don't really value them. So you're almost explaining the reason for it, so that next time it happens, you're having the same conversation, but they're able to relate, right? You say to them, why did mommy say you need to clean up after yourself again? Why is that important? And of course, you will repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, but that's how we practice, right? That's how we eventually get it right. You know, Solomon's mother spoke to him about the kind of wife he needs to find. She spoke to him about strong drink. You know, many great men, have been on their purpose, doing really great things. But, things like alcohol, I think we know a lot of great people that were well educated and doing well. And, just alcohol just derailed them. So it's things like that we need to be speaking to our children about. And what I love about this verse is that, there's an instruction there for parents to train up their children. But what I love is that there's also a promise that comes with that. So when we do our part as parents, God does his part of the promise. And I believe that God, is truly faithful to do what he promised that he would do. There was another thing I actually wanted to speak about. Yes, speaking, when you're speaking into a child's life, it shouldn't come from a place of like dictatorship. We shouldn't be speaking to our children only at a time when we're saying, no, don't do that, or you've done something wrong. We've had those parents where, when they call you, you know that, you start recalling and thinking back, goodness, what could I have missed? Did I finish my homework? Did I do this? Did I pass that test? Because the one time that parent calls you is because you're in for it. But the relationship we have with our children needs to be so different. It needs to be a relationship. I believe you cannot speak into somebody's life unless there's a relationship. So we can't come, from a position of dictatorship and like, I'm in authority and therefore, you need to listen to me kind of behavior. But we need to be able to laugh and chat. It needs to be a relationship. Yes, of course. Children need to know that you're the parent and they're the children. It's not the kind of relationship where we're just friends and everyone's doing what they want to do. But we can relate to each other. We can have fun with each other. But I'm still the parent and you're still the child. One of the rules we've got in our home is that there's only two parents and everyone else is a child. We don't do the pre-teen or teen or none of that. There's no teens in my house. We just have children and we have adults. And the role of children is to listen to parents. And I believe our children are children until the age of 18, until they leave our home, one day. Then they're ready to make their own choices. But I believe when we have a relationship with our children as well, that's for a lifetime. So even one day when they do leave, they want to come back to our home, and that's what we want, right? Even as adults, they need to be able to come back and say, man, I need to speak to you about this particular thing. And they need to know that we will speak to them from a place of love and be honest with them, because the world is ready with answers, but they're not necessarily the right kind of answers that we want for our children. So I'm encouraging you, to make some time, to invest some time into that relationship that you have with your child, to train them, speak to them about everything. Yes, certain topics might be a little bit uncomfortable, but I think it's important for us as parents, for our children to be able to come to us, and it's important not to be like shocked, at certain topics that they want to speak about, or if they come to you and say, this is what I've done. It's important to hold that composure. Yes, inside you're like, oh my goodness, is that my child? But to hold that composure, and I believe the Holy Spirit will honor us in giving them, the correct instruction and correct counsel. And great wisdom that we can actually impart over to them. So we need to be comfortable in having really weird and difficult conversation and not overreact. I think that's really important. A lot of children feel like, well, I can't come to my parent because, man, they're going to overreact. So we need to remember that our children are not perfect. God gives our children parents so that we can actually kind of mold them. I almost think of children as like a clay. They need to be molded. And clay sometimes just goes the wrong way. So all we do is just kind of mold it again, without, for a lack of a better word, losing our cool. So we need to be calm in all circumstances. And often, we need to spend that time with God, because we can't pour into someone when we're empty. So we need to spend that time in the Word and spend that time with God. And I promise you, grace is available for parenting, and it's not God's will for us to be overwhelmed. So remember to train your child in the way that they should go. And Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 12 says, God watches over His word to fulfill it. And I believe when we do our part as parents in training our children, not getting exhausted, but continuing to practice, right, and instruct, then God will do His part as well. And whenever, they go off course, a lot of people misinterpret this verse and say, that your children will go off course, but they'll come back. But it clearly says there, they will not depart from it. So whenever we see them going off course, we can go back to God. And that's what I love about the Word of God, right? It's a contract. It's a covenant. We can go back and say, God, right there in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, you have said, if I do my part, you will do yours. And we can hold Him to His word. God is not afraid. He wants us to hold Him accountable to His word, and He will fulfill it. Well, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we will see you. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media platforms and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye.